Well, I remember talking to Andrew Embry,
Oh,
who
yes.
was studying with Sessions. Of course, he remembers you and remembers Bill Smith, and he said we'd go over to Mills and they would be sitting on the lawns composing, and he said we just didn't know what to make of that because we were so regimented and Sessions was so strict about everything.
Yeah. Mio would once in a while talk about how strict it was when he visited other composers' classes. Hindemith's at Yale, he said, was so strict. He said, I felt sorry for the students. He was so tough with them, demanding. And his idea was to let you be free and just go the way you wanted to go. And he never drilled his ideas into you. He drilled Bach into you, and counterpoint, and few things like that. But when it came to composition, you were absolutely free.
What was your exposure to him, and what was your routine at school?
Well, I took a private lesson every week. And then I had orchestration with a class. And the more GIs that came the next semester, there were only 3 male students, I think, when I was there. Gordon Smith, who became maybe the head of American school in Washington.
I think he was head of the music department at American University in Washington.
He was there. And then my friends started coming, like Dave Van Crete, and
had he been at San Francisco State?
Yeah. Dick Collins, Bob Collins, Jack Weeks, son of Anson Weeks, the band leader, was there. And Paul Desmond was at San Francisco State, and he'd come over when we started. What Mio told us we could use our jazz instruments for orchestration and composition and counterpoint if we wanted to, and that's how the octet was born. Right.
And that surprised you, I read.
Oh yeah, sure.
You were surprised that he was so lenient that way.
Yeah.
And Bill Smith, of course, we met there. We didn't know him prior, but Dave Van Crete, Dave had known before, and Paul Desmond he'd met, but didn't really know him yet.
Well, let's talk about the octet then, because that's when it all started.
Well,
were you were composing? You were really focusing on composing then?
Yeah. That's every week I'd bring in a little piano piece to the private lesson, and they're all published now in Schirmer's, called Reminiscences of the Cattle Country, but it was for Mia's class. And Schirmer's published how many of those?
I've forgotten just how many in the book. And then there are 4 that were left over that went into another book.
And what was your process of composing those?
I usually wrote at the piano, and Mio said that was okay. That Stravinsky usually wrote at the piano, and he loves Stravinsky. If that's the way you want to write that way. But he did say, if you're writing a string quartet, I recommend that you don't write it at the piano. And I wrote a string quartet not too long ago, and a lot of it was written at the piano and away from the piano. So it was a combination. But I'm kind of a slave to the piano too.
Well, that's your instrument. When you were talking about Schoenberg, I was wondering if you ever sent him the Duke, because didn't you use the 12-tone row eventually?
Yeah, I didn't know it though, that I did.
You did? Oh, you didn't know it?
No, a teacher, when we played at some conservatory, said, I like the way you use the 12-tone row and the bass. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you go through all 12 basic notes in the first 8 bars. I said, yeah, I didn't know that. So I checked it out, and sure enough, it does. So the Duke could have been called the Duke meets Darius Milhaud and Stravinsky.
And Schoenberg.
Schoenberg.
And Schoenberg,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, I'm sure he knew it. I'm sure he came across it.
Who?
Schoenberg.
Oh, I'll bet you he didn't.
Oh, sure he did.